102 Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jason Strudwick. Sounds like everyone down in Utah is listening to the show. We're listening to Strud or Dud because this literally just broke 5 minutes ago. Utah has taken out the Wasatch option for a name, and they've replaced it with Outlaws. So now it's either Utah Hockey Club, Utah Mammoth, or Utah Outlaws.
Yeah, but if I was, like, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but if I was sitting down with the market, if I was sitting down with the marketing people.
Give me a second.
Yeah, let him breathe, man. You can't drop that on people.
What are you talking about? Do I act like I'm the smartest guy in the world?
You got it. Go on.
I would sit down with the marketing people and be like, did you really think that was going to fly, like it was going to be in contention? Like, people get paid to be smart on their feet like that. What are you doing putting that in there?
I know.
Especially when you're a new franchise, you can't have that as an option. Wasatch or Wasatch.
Wasatch, and it's a local term, I guess. And I wouldn't be surprised if the NHL said this. It's tough for people to get and follow, and if it's in there, and what if it gets voted on? You can't say, hey, everyone gets to vote, democracy, and then what if that's the name? Yeah. Then what are you going to do?
But the owner's a smart dude. He knew Wasatch is not going to make it.
I know, but
it's just
they're trying to cater to their market. But at the same time, you have to consider people around the league and around the world that are like, okay, we're marketing your team. You're in town. Who's playing tonight? The Utah Wasatch? Okay, let's change that.
How stupid does that sound?
It just doesn't. It doesn't roll off your tongue clearly, and I think that's why they heard Strut or Dud and said we got to change it up.
Because let's be honest, like Outlaws, that's the name of Division 7 men's league team in Sudbury, right? Like that's it. The logo is a gun leaning against a dart that's, or maybe a beer in there. Like that doesn't have a chance either. Let's just call it what it is. It's Mammoth. Just say we decided. They're Mammoth. Forcing them.
That's right. Go with Mammoth. You're right. Outlaws, it'd have a big cowboy hat, right? A mustache.
Oh, that'll piss somebody off, the Outlaws. So.
Well, that'll bother people. Exactly. Someone will say, well, that's not right. You shouldn't be promoting Outlaws as if we still live in the Wild West.
Yeah.
But it's got to be Mammoth. Last night, it was Sid that actually scored the winner in OT against the Wasatches. And Sid's still been on fire, and, Pittsburgh, they're largely out of it, but he's still playing with fire, and he's the captain of the Canadian team, and it was announced today, the 4 captains for the 4 nations is Sidney Crosby for Canada, Auston Matthews for the U.S., Victor Hedman for Sweden, and Sasha Barkov for Finland. That all seems about right. I mean, the question is with Matthews, because he hasn't had a chance to play in a tournament like this, he has no history in doing so, and he hasn't won anything clearly. But he's the best American. He's the face of the United States, I think, face of American hockey. I could be wrong. I understand I'm in the bubble up here in Toronto. I'm not an American, but I think they just went with best player. He's got swag. He scores 1 million goals. Like, it's kind of the American way. Make him the captain.
Of course it is. Make him the captain. And ultimately, who cares about who the captains are? We're in Canada. We like talking about this stuff. This is just to create some buzz for the upcoming tournament, correct? Like,
yes.
Are people really going home and saying, man, I can't believe Matthew Tkachuk is not the captain of the United States? Highly unlikely.
I doubt it, and I think most people understand or should understand the Tkachuk brothers are likely going to have – they're going to have a louder voice than Auston Matthews. Right, like Austin's pretty reserved. Austin's not going to be rah-rah, guarantee, Chris Chelios, Jeremy Roenick type. The Roenick/Chelios of this era are the Tkachuk brothers, right? Like, that's as close as you're going to get. They're going to be talking. They're going to be probably making guarantees. And they're the guys that this tournament need. Like, you need someone to throw a massive hit and start a scrum and punch someone in the head to prove that it's real. And if I'm taking bets on who I think is most likely to do that, I would say it's probably Matthew and Brady Tkachuk. So, I think in a weird way, Strud, like if you're the tournament or if you're Gary Bettman and the owners, you kind of need the Tkachuk brothers to be at the forefront of this tournament because if they're taking their foot off the gas, that's not a good sign.
No, you need emotionally involved in this tournament to get everybody else emotionally involved quickly into this tournament.
Exactly. All right, here is former Leaf, one of our favorites here. You see him and hear him on the NHL on TNT, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Eddie Olczyk. Eddie, we're just discussing the captains, the 4 captains named for the 4 nations. As a proud American yourself, what do you make of Auston Matthews being the captain for Team USA?
Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Plenty of obviously on all the on all 4 teams. But nice to be with you guys. Happy New Year. Haven't talked to you guys in a while. Hope everything is going well. And it's hard to believe we're it's less than 2 weeks now, right? We're going to be getting this opportunity to see the I'm calling it the appetizer for the Olympics. From almost a year and a month from now. So it should be great. But look, I mean, Auston Matthews will do an amazing job, and he has obviously a boatload of help inside that locker room, just like the other teams do. And you probably legitimately have 15, 16 leaders and captains and alternate captains inside each room. So I don't think you could go wrong. But great choice, and certainly wish Team USA well in the 4 nations face-off.
Edzo, what's your kind of assumption on what the caliber of, like, the intensity? I've heard wavering things like it's just going to be some kind of weird extension of the All-Star game, and I'm not sure guys are going to be into it. And then you hear some of the American guys like the Tkachuks are going to be going nuts and crushing guys. Yeah. What do you think it's going to be like?
Oh, I think once they're in it, dog, I think it's going to be for keeps. I mean, I sure hope so.
Me too.
We on TNT down here in the States, we're sharing with our partners at ESPN, and we're doing game 1 in Montreal, and then we're getting the last 2 games in Boston in the preliminary round. So we have a doubleheader that day, and I think it's the 17th of February. But sure hope both those games mean something, because there could be a possibility where you get to a game, obviously at the end of the round robin or whatever we're calling it, the preliminary round is where you could, it could happen that the last couple of games don't mean anything, and obviously, for us selfishly just for hockey fans in general, that would be, that wouldn't be the greatest thing. But look, I think it's going to be a competitive tournament. Highly unlikely that both games aren't going to mean something, but that is a distinct possibility. But I would hope that these guys would look at this as an opportunity to set up what's going to happen in 13 months from now and set themselves up and for the Olympics. But it's an opportunity here to get away from the regular season for a while and go play with the best players in the world and represent your country. And look at any of the guys I've talked to from any of the 4 countries. They all theme and are saying the right things. So I'm anticipating a plums to the wall type of feeling for these games. And if you get a game where it doesn't mean anything, okay, yeah, maybe we do have an exhibition. Maybe it does. But I would say when there's money on the line and there's a chance to get to the championship, to me, I think that these guys want to win, and I don't think anybody wants to embarrass themselves, and I think it's going to be all out. So I could just speak from experience. Again, it's a different time. I know it's in the middle of the season, but having gotten the chance to play in the 84, 87, and 91 Canada Cups, going into a season, that was as high intense and it was another level. It really was. And I know it's different times and, different type of tournament, but it's, I think there's something to it when you're going up against the very best. And, I played in the Olympics in 84 for Team USA as an amateur. So, even though every other country was so-called professional, now we have the best players in the world playing in the Olympics now again. I think that it's as a player, I think you go out there and you you give it all, and whatever happens. But I just got a feeling that it's going to be some entertaining hockey, and hopefully everybody will be able to enjoy it, and then get back to the National Hockey League.
Joined by Eddie Olczyk. Eddie, much like yourself, I have some international experience. I dominated the Spangler Cup. Sounds like you played in a few more tournaments than I did. So, chemistry. How do you get the chemistry quickly for any of the teams to be ready? Because it could be over before you even know it. Yeah,
that's a tough one, Struddy. I mean, that is going to be the difficult part for everybody. You just better hope that your goaltender or goaltenders have the chemistry, because maybe they could weather the storm in a game or weather a couple of periods and allow you to get a goal on a power play or whatever. It's fair. It's a fair question. I don't think that there's an answer to it. Now, I would assume that these coaches, would look at players and the teams that they come from, or if there's been a relationship in the prior years with teams or whatever, is that you're going to go ahead and label guys up and let them play together, like Makar and Taves, obviously for Canada, and you can just go up and down and you can see how where you can get that chemistry right away, and but it is all a part of the process. And look, a lot of these guys, and that's what these tournaments are about, is all of these guys are usually on the first power play. All these guys are usually going over the boards first to kill penalties. All these guys are usually out there at the end of a game. Well, that's not going to be the case. So I think accepting and executing your role, regardless of what it is, and there's well-documented stories over the years in all these, these great tournaments that have happened, from Canada Cups to, back in '96 and, the World Cup of Hockey and all that kind of stuff. You got guys that, hey, I need to go out and take a face-off and then get the hell off the ice and get the big boys out there. And that's what you got to do. So I think you could develop chemistry, I think, off the ice, and hopefully it carries to on the ice. And I think only time will tell. But to me, the most important part will be is it might take a little bit of time, and there is no time. So your goaltender or goaltenders might have to be the ones that you got to make sure that they're ready to go and give yourself a chance to get your sea legs under you, so to speak.
Eddie, you were calling the Pens win last night, and Sid's always going to be a guy that, I think a lot of Canadian hockey fans are tracking just because of who he is. And we referenced he's 100%. The captain and he's going to the Four Nations. But the fact of the matter is Pittsburgh's they're in a pretty tough place, second last in the East. Yet you got to see him up close.
Brian, it's been like that. I mean,
exactly.
Exactly.
It's been like
for a handful of years now. So I think it's. It's obviously. I mean, it's sad because you look at Sid. Like last year, I thought he should have won the Selke Trophy last year. I mean, I know Barkov had an unbelievable year, but I thought Sid had just as good as a year, maybe one of the best years he's had in a very, very long time when it comes to the 200-foot game. So look, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I mean, this is like I sometimes when people say they're really surprised that the Penguins are where they are or whatever. Well, I mean. Unless you just kind of woke up and you just see what's going on and go, geez, well, yeah, how does this team, but like this has been on the horizon here for, a good, 4 years, 5 years maybe? I mean, I think that's fair. Now look at, he does have still has the ability, like he did last night, to keep you and drag you into the fight and give you a chance. But, last time I checked, Father and Mother Time are undefeated, and he needs help. I mean, there's no doubt about it, and they're in must-win situations, each and every night now. And I mean, talking to Mike Sullivan, before the morning skate yesterday, I mean, you can just tell, like he feels like they played their best game of the season in LA a couple of games ago, and then they go and lose to Anaheim and. In Seattle, and then the Dogs
San Jose, they lost, I think.
They lost to San Jose. I mean, I didn't think they played all that great in San Jose, but I mean, not that really matters. But like they think that they kind of deserve better in some of these games. But you've played 50 games now, and you're a bubble team. I mean, you were a bubble team last year. You missed. You're a bubble team this year, and unless you go on a 8 of 10 or 15 of 20 here, you're going to be on the outside looking in. So I mean, it's I feel for Sid, but I mean, look, we've seen this in a lot of different markets where you have Hall of Fame players, playing in their 16, 17, 18 season, and having a difficult time getting their teams to where they were before. I mean, it's happened in Detroit, it happened in Chicago, it's happening in Pittsburgh now. So, I mean, it's just inevitable is that if the ownership and the franchises aren't ahead of it, this is what's going to end up happening. I mean, look what's happened in Chicago here now. I mean, you're gone on almost 8 years now. Detroit, it's been a battle, right? I mean, since the days of Lidstrom and Datsuk and Zetterberg and Holmstrom and, Steve and all those guys. I mean, that's so, but I think a lot of hockey people saw this coming a couple of years ago as if they didn't, if they didn't turn the page or try to go in a different direction, and they just kept coming back with it. And now they're in they're in the same spot that they were last year. And, how did they get out of it? And then they're going to be a bubble team again next year, right?
At best.
Don't know how they're going to get out of it. And look, I mean, watching him play is still amazing. I mean, look, I was lucky enough to be there in Pittsburgh when he was a rookie in the National Hockey League, and I mean, just got a lot of pressure on him and did not disappoint. I mean, from the first day he stepped on the ice at practice, you just knew that this guy was breathing different air, and this guy is going to go down as, without a doubt, one of the greatest players to ever play in the National Hockey League.
Absolutely. With Eddie Olczyk, and that's kind of where I was going was, the team's not helping him, but he still looks great. And then you look at the other end of the spectrum in the East, you got the Capitals who are running away with the conference.
Amazing.
And there's Ovi doing his thing. And, I'm curious, are you a believer in Washington, and how big of an impact do you think Ovi can have, every other night in the playoffs?
Yeah, well, Shreddy and O-Dog they can certainly relate, is that, when you do have that, that rallying cry or that rallying point inside that locker room. Now, look, this is as big as it would ever get, right? When you got a chance to take down the greatest goal scorer in the history of the National Hockey League, there is something, I think, inside that locker room that is galvanizing that team and, wanting to be a part of it and wanting to see Ovi to get it. Now, whether or not he gets it or not this year, I mean, who knows what's going to happen, right? Like, he's going to have a couple of weeks off here, and, when he comes back, how, is he going to be able to be moving like he has been here recently? I mean, there's, he's kind of slowed down here a little bit, and, but the team is playing unbelievable, and that's certainly an important part for them too. But I think, Ovi's chase, I think, has a lot to do with how well that they're playing collectively. They are playing so well without the puck. They're defending very well. And look when you add experienced defensemen, on the back end, like they have over the course of the summer, it's such an important part, right? You get Chychrun in there, you got Matt Roy in there. They went a little bit younger last year, and it didn't work. Jersey did that 2 years ago. They went younger. It didn't work. They had the injury to Hamilton. That really hurt them. Now, all of a sudden, Jersey goes out and gets Brendan Dillon and gets Brett Pesce. They get Hamilton back, and all of a sudden the Devils, when they're going, they look like they're a team that should be competing for a conference final in the East. But for me, when I watch the Washington Capitals, they just look like they're very comfortable. They play, they check very well. They're not giving up a whole heck of a lot, and they can play any way you want. You want to play a 7-6 game? They got guys that would love to do that, but they got guys on that team that they're willing to go ahead and play a 2-1 game, or if you want to go ahead and drop the gloves and play a real physical game, they can do that too. So I think you're looking at the coach of the year right there with Spencer Carberry. He's done an amazing job, and all the moves that have been made off the ice. But long-winded, yes, I think that the Caps can carry over what they're doing into the playoffs. Now, we know the game's much different in the playoffs. The rink gets a little bit smaller. But I think the chase for the grade 8 is certainly a big reason why that this team is, kind of just found that chemistry and is having an unbelievable season. And they don't look like they're slowing down, really. I mean, they've had maybe a blip or two, but other than that, they've been pretty damn consistent, and that's pretty damn impressive.
Absolutely, it is. Always great catching up with you, Eddie. Enjoy the Four Nations face-off, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
Okay, guys, nice to be with you. Thanks for having me.
There is Eddie Olczyk joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Count on Maple Toyota for the right winter tire package for your Toyota. Trade in your old tires, buy a new set, and get $40 back. Visit mapletoyota.com. So we got some breaking news here while Eddie was on with us. Max Scherzer has signed with the Blue Jays. Max Scherzer is on his way to Toronto.
You got to figure, why wouldn't I come back and play one more season and pitch every 5 days for $15.5 million?
That's an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
Listen, he's a legend of the game, but his arm...
He is, man.
This guy's a first ballot unanimous stud Hall of Famer. Like,
yes.
It's him, it's Verlander, it's Kershaw. Like, those are the big three of the last 15 years. And they need help. But it is a bit of a gamble because, is he going to give you 30 starts? I don't know. I don't know if you're banking on that. Is he going to give you 150 innings? I'm not sure.
You know what this signing is. This is, hey, don't look over here.
Possibly. Do you think it's connected to Pete Alonso? There has been
it's just don't look what we haven't done. Look at, hey, we got Max Scherzer. So don't look back. Don't look over there at what we haven't done. Look at our shiny new toy. It's Max Scherzer, the legend, the warrior. Don't look at what's happened the past 2 months. Just look over here.
I'll be the first to admit this will get me hook, line, and sinker. I'm going to go watch this guy pitch. Like, I that doesn't mean I'm going to adjust how I feel.
There you go.
But them winning,
case closed, as you say, man. You gotcha.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, it is entertainment in the end, and the guy, he's an all-time great arm. Like, and could it feel like Joe Thornton? It could. It could. Could it feel like Elijah one? It could. Could it feel like Frank Thomas? There's been countless examples of guys at the end of their careers, attaching themselves to a team. I am curious, and I don't think we'll get an answer publicly or on the record. Is it about the money? Is it about opportunity? Does he think he could, can he win here? I don't know. He's going to say that, right? Like role play. If you're playing the role of Max Scherzer here, he's going to say, I only came here because I want to win, and I'm going to win. Like, of course he's going to say that.
Dude, he's going to have the whole thing. Like, I feel 25. I've always loved Toronto. He'll have the whole full meal deal.
Of course.
Great off season.
Yeah, of course he will.
Yeah,
but
this
be in
is
the
my
best
concern.
shape of my life come spring training.
Yeah, never felt better. But this is what I see is that how does this help the Jays moving forward? Right, so he's at the end of his career. Maybe 2 more years.
Struddy, they don't have anybody in their system that they can bring along.
That's a problem. Yeah,
but so you're not really fixing anything. You're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on and hoping it buys you time. And I guess that's
what I said. Don't look over here. This is a don't look over here signing. Just focus on Scherzer, but don't look over there at the other mess that's over there.
Reasonable. Reasonable. They tried to get Corbin Burns. He didn't take their deal. He went to Arizona. This is the other end of that spectrum, right? Burns is in his prime. He's a horse. He never gets hurt. And it was going to be a 6 or 7 year deal, long-term planning. This falls in line with they have 1 year to prove they can win, or they're all probably out. That's what this is about. Like, if you're Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, you have to win this year. And now you're going to have Gausman, Barrios, and, obviously you're going to mix Scherzer in here. You're hoping Bowden Francis is a guy that pitches like he did from August onward. And you're going to have Chris Bassett. Like, there's your 5, right? Rodriguez probably goes to the bullpen. He becomes your 6th arm. You're going to need him. That's your rotation. It's not young. Gausman had a down year for him. Bassett had a down year. And now you're bringing a 40-year-old Scherzer who was injured a lot. It's a gamble. It's a gamble for sure. But there is a marketing component to it as well. And it's hey, we need something and someone, and we got to do something. Here's $15.5 million. That's a lot of money for a guy who, again, was injured a lot the last couple of years. But I guess you got to pay to play if you want a big name like that, right? Like Scherzer's he's not signing for $1 million. Like that's not going to happen.
Dude, he wouldn't
either.
have signed for 9.
No, he has so much money. Why does he need more? Like he's got to make sense. Like I think O'Dog, you started out. He's not coming here for free. He's got to be. There's got to be a good reason to come and play for him. And I don't know. I just feels like a Band-Aid, right? You're just hold on. Let's just hold on for another year, and there's no real movement forward now. Those other guys do well, and he can guide them. Mentor them. Okay, maybe there's something there, but mama.
Listen, that's going to be a part of it too. The sales pitch will be when this guy shows up for pitchers and catchers, which is in like a couple of weeks, guys. It's coming up quick.
Yes.
If you're a young arm, go watch this guy. Go stand, there's like a mentorship that's going to come with. I don't know if there's any value in that.
Dude, pay a coach, not a
I
guy
understand
$15.5 million.
I'm trying to spin this as a glass half full.
No, you already spun it the perfect way. You just said, I'm hook, line, and sinker. I'm going to watch
I will go see him pitch at the Rogers Center. That is enticing to me. It has nothing to do with wins and losses. I understand that. This isn't me suggesting, okay, now they're going to win 93 games.
Dude, it's like Kevin Costner in the movie when he was pitching. It's just like the old veteran. You're just going to go down there and watch that old crusty veteran on the mound.
Yeah, and he just
clear the mechanism.
He snorts and snarls, and he's angry. Like, that's him. That's
of all the
Scherzer.
pitchers in the past 20 years of watching baseball, can you think, obviously there was Nolan Ryan, but can you think of an intensity of a guy on the mound more than Max Scherzer?
Nobody.
Yeah, he had like a hockey player mentality out there.
Yes, he is. Like, you go pull him out of the game, he's fighting you, and he's pissed off, and if he doesn't get a call, the umpire's going to hear about it. There is a level of intensity that comes with him. And he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, the guy's stats are off the charts.
Yeah.
He's done everything in his career. So there you go. It's Santander and Jimenez playing second, Scherzer on the mound, Jeff Hoffman in the bullpen. Those are the moves so far, and I'm sure they're still in on Pete Alonso, because I believe Scherzer's a Boris guy.
But if they were in on Pete Alonso, wouldn't that have happened right now? It seems like Pete is just dragging this out, and he's just going to call Cohen at the last minute, and he's just going to say, can we just figure something out?
I kind of feel the same way.
His heart's in New York.
Yeah, he wants to stay with the Mets.
There, man.
Yeah, he wants to stay in New York.
I don't know what is he trying to sniff out an extra $5 or $6 million? I don't know how much the amount is, but it feels like he's going to capitulate at the last minute and just say, let me just get this done with the Mets.
Yeah. Very, very, very possible. I'm sure that's what he wants. I don't think it takes a genius to figure that out. That's what he wants, to stay in New York, right? But are the Mets going to pay him? I don't know. Like, does Cohen feel he has to pay him? He had a bit of a down year last year. Maybe they feel like they don't have to do that. But, Scherzer, man, he is a throwback. He is a serious, serious throwback. Like, you look at the amount of games he's pitched in, the amount of games he's started. It's incredible. All right, we'll come back and continue to touch on this. Again, breaking news this hour, Max Scherzer signing with the Jays, $15.5 million on a one-year deal. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, so breaking news this hour, Max Scherzer is signed on with the Blue Jays. 1 year, $15.5 million. His agent is Scott Boras. So now what this means is Boras, after, I think, using the Jays basically the whole winter to get, a deal for that he was getting. Soto was going to get a deal anyway, but trying to get a deal for Alonso, right? All these different connections that Boras has had where the Jays have been involved, right? Jays just missed. Jays were in. Jays were second. Jays were this.
You think
now
this
Boras is going to
circling the wagon.
Well, now he got them to give him $15.5 million. Again, if Scherzer pitches anything close to his capability, then the money's irrelevant, and it's a good signing. Like, if he gives them 25 starts, I'll take it. 25 starts, Scherzer shows up, good signing, good job. He becomes kind of the face and voice of the rotation.
But, Hayes, if you were the Jays, wouldn't you say to Boras, actually, we're tired of your routine. You can go stuff it with Max Scherzer. We've been dicked around by this Soto stuff. Like, I would tell that guy to jump in a lake so far it wouldn't even be fun.
He's just got so much power. They all kiss the ring. And that's what's going to be frustrating is Boras is going to be like, love the Jays. They mean business. They got great ownership that spend. It's like, oh,
Dude,
really?
That's not what at the start of like winter meetings, he always says the Jays are so cheap and they've got to up their
exactly.
He rips the Jays at the start of winter meetings all the time.
He always did. It was always his routine. It stopped a little bit when they signed Ryu. Hyunjin Ryu was his client. He got Hyunjin. He got him his $80 million for him to give us.
Well, before
5
that, he
innings and
carved
leave.
the Jays.
He used to destroy them.
Yes.
And then they paid Ryu, and now they paid Scherzer. And now Boris will claim that the Jays are the best, and everyone loves the Blue Jays. And listen, it's how often do you get a Hall of Famer? I understand where he is. He's 40 years old. He's 40. This is not ace stuff. He's won 3 Cy Youngs, but it's been a decade, I think, since his last one. You're not getting ace-like stuff, but could you see glimpses of it? I think that's possible, and I think will a lot of people be buzzing that Scherzer's on the mound for the Jays?
Come
Yes.
on down to the ballpark.
Come on down to the park.
Veteran. And I don't know. We'll see if Keegan agrees, but the way I look at this signing, it's look right here for a minute. Don't look at that over there. Don't look at the team over there. Just look at this. We'll see what he has to say.
All right, here's Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. Keegan, how do you see this signing from a Blue Jay perspective? Max Scherzer, 1 year, $15.5 million.
I think it makes a lot of sense, guys, and I also agree. It's another thing we're talking about, like Anthony Santander, that is changing the direction of the conversation, even for a little bit, around the Blue Jays. They've had this money to spend through the offseason. They've got a lot of cash. And this, for 1 year, $15.5 million, to take a shot on anyone, why not Max Scherzer? And why not one of the great pitchers of this generation? Now, he's 40. He's turning 41 in July. You're not looking for a 2.7 ERA dominant Max Scherzer, but if he gives you a 3.9 and makes most of his starts, that's pretty damn good. And now you bump Yariel Rodriguez down. You fill the bullpen a little bit better. It has a bit of a domino effect there. Now, Max Scherzer, it's all about age. It's all about staying healthy. But if there's one thing the Blue Jays have done well, and at times this has been the one thing we can point to, but they've kept veteran starters healthy. So lines up. It's fascinating. And, guys, I keep coming back to, just like Santander, this is a move that if you're going to do this, just keep going. If you're going to sign Max Scherzer, push in at this point.
So what is that push in? Is it simply Alonso, or is it more than that?
Alonso, I think, is the most obvious option at this point. I continue to think that the Mets are still very possible, maybe likely in that case. When you see it going back and forth like this with a lot of the word reporting needs to be used extremely loosely here, maybe put in Comic Sans font. But when you see this going back and forth with Alonso, a lot of the times it's a player waiting for the team he wants to bring the money out. But the Blue Jays still have the opportunity to hit the trade market as well. They've still got this real big group of young infielders that would be attractive elsewhere. But now that the Jays have done this, it feels like that lineup addition is the one thing left. And that can be done a lot of ways. I still think the trade market's a big opportunity. But this, for me, guys, takes care of a couple of things. If you do slide Yariel Rodriguez to the bullpen, you might be a little more comfortable with that pen where it is right now if you're the Blue Jays. And obviously this rotation just got better if he can stay healthy.
This feels like we're getting pretty far down from option A, option B, option C. Where would you say it is in those, as you work through being denied or granted access to signing a player?
Yeah, this tends to be when the Jays like to do their business, too. They're a big January team, and sometimes that's a team trying to look smart and wait out the market. Sometimes you get burned by that. Max Scherzer, in terms of who they wanted going into this offseason, was not 1, 2, or 3 as a starting pitcher. They would have loved to land Corbin Burns. They were big in on Burns, but he wanted to go to Arizona. Some of the other top-end starters, they certainly chased down. Now, at this point, I think what's most attractive about this, guys, is that you get him for 1 year. I mean, we might be talking in late July about, hey, the Blue Jays are out of this, but they can trade Max Scherzer and get something back. Maybe that's the way that all of this goes. But if you're going to take this contract on anyone, and I'm trying to think of other veterans on the market, like a Jose Quintana, Andrew Heaney, these types, I do think Scherzer makes some sense given the track record. Now, his stuff has not gotten better as he's reached 40, but it hasn't gone off a cliff either. And, man, fascinated to cover a player like Scherzer, too. Intense does not even begin to describe it, as anyone who's watched him on TV knows, but it's one of those players you never really thought would be in a Blue Jays uniform. It's going to be strange to see, but you never know where an off-season will take you, especially in January.
Keegan, in spring training, before the first pitch is thrown and the question is asked to Ross, what do you believe the expectation for this team is? What do you expect to hear back?
I think he'll say there's lots of exciting options and alternatives and many words like that, but the optimism will be spewing out of the Blue Jays again, because it always is going to be. And I never think that's an accurate barometer, maybe is the best way to say it. But the Blue Jays,
but it was, what was it, 2 years ago, it was World Series aspirations. What would it be now with these additions and where the team stands?
I still think they're a team that's shooting at that final wild card spot. I don't think they've raised the bar enough to be chasing the division whatsoever, but I think that this is still a team that's going to be, if they can make a run, going at one of those final wild card spots. And we've seen how that works out, guys. All of those 0-2 exits they've had in 2020, 22, and 23. The wild card, it's great to participate and get in, but you've got to do something with it. Eventually, and God, guys, we've been saying this for 5-6 years, eventually you've got to take a run at the division. Get yourself into the ALDS with a 5-game series where you can settle in and play some baseball. But they've been getting bounced from that wild card spot. So the sights still need to be higher. I still think one more move turns this into a real good offseason. But I'm also not sitting here thinking that they're suddenly projected to win 95 games. Not at all. There are still issues with the team. They still need to round out that lineup, absolutely. And there will be a ton of optimism. There always is. My God, the Chicago White Sox will be saying that they're optimistic on February 14th. But, they're a little closer than they were a day ago. We'll say that for now.
With Keegan Matheson, MLB.com, breaking news this hour. Max Scherzer is signing a one-year deal with the Blue Jays, $15.5 million. So that sets up, presuming no more deals or anything, and everyone shows up and healthy and breaks camp healthy and everyone has a good spring training. Gausman, Bassett, Barrios, Francis, Scherzer. How does that starting rotation match up compared to the others in the AL East?
I think it's a damn good one, especially if you can get Bowden Francis looking anything like he did a year ago. I think that Kevin Gausman will be better than he was last year if he gets a normal spring, because he was forced to catch up last year. Guys, if I have learned anything, I haven't learned much over these last 10 years covering the team, but I've learned one thing. It's that if you get behind in spring training, you're screwed. If you're trying to catch up all year, you're not going to, and that's what Gausman had to do early in the season. I think he's going to be better. Chris Bassett will be himself. Jose Barrios will be himself. They always are. But if you get something out of Scherzer, and if you get a little bit of upside out of Chris Bassett, that's a real good rotation. Not the best in baseball. I won't get carried away, but that's a very good rotation. And how you line it up is interesting as well. I'll probably just intentionally annoy John Schneider on day one, on February 13th, ask him who the opening day starter is. But it's you can roll out any of those four, man, those veteran four, and you're not going to find many quartets in baseball with that much experience. These guys have been around forever.
Yeah, it's interesting, like with Scherzer now, because when the news broke, because he'd been linked to the Jays for weeks now, but we're so immune to that because of all the linkage, the linking of different players and different free agents over the last few years. I don't think we put a lot into it and haven't really discussed it. So we're really getting into it for the first time now that he is officially signed. I said right off the bat, Keegan, early this hour, like this has got me hook, line, and sinker as like a customer and a fan because I want to see him pitch for the Blue Jays. And I'm curious, opening day is a big one. The home opener is a big one. And, the marketing component that comes with Scherzer, how do you think they link all of that together? Where, ownership, management, marketing, they're going to want to capitalize on this guy because of who he is. But Schneider's got to deal with, Gausman, who's been the kind of alpha dog in the clubhouse for a while. Barrios is the guy who's signed long-term. He's gotten the ball opening day in the past. Like, how do they mix Scherzer into this in terms of baseball dynamics, but also the marketing component, considering He's an all-time great. He's going to Cooperstown, and it'll probably be a 100% vote when he goes.
Oh, yeah, marketing dream. And, guys, I try to think of just taking a step back. My brain is too far inside baseball all the time, but the average fan, one of our buddies who watches a couple of games a week, your mom, your uncle, they know who Max Scherzer is, and they know he's damn good. They're not going to care too much about his back surgery a year ago, that he's 40, how his fastball's moving, yada, yada. They're not going to care much about that yet. They're going to hear Max Scherzer is on the Blue Jays and think, holy crap, that's pretty good. And I don't know if all of the bobbleheads are in yet. I don't know if they can get the mismatching contact lenses for one eye in as a giveaway or what they can do, but I know they'll be all over this, guys. And in the clubhouse, I think that Gausman, Barrios, Bassett, I think those guys are the right ones to handle it. At times, things like this can become a distraction. You know, I think back to last year when Joey Votto was trying to get up to the big leagues, and every time I'm asking John Schneider, where is he? There's no update. It seemed a bit odd for a bit of a stretch there. But I think Scherzer should be a guy who is contributing and not making, not drawing attention anywhere else. I really do think Gausman, Bassett, I would love to witness a conversation between Chris Bassett and Max Scherzer about pitching. That would be incredible. But I think they're the right guys to take it in, and man, probably sells a few tickets. I don't know how that's going right now, but the average fan, I tell you what, is going to be excited about this.
Yeah. Well, and I guess we'll get you out of here on a day one, hour one prediction here. Or I guess the bar, like the bottom of the barrel in terms of the amount of innings, amount of starts that you feel would make this a valuable play. In other words, they're paying him $15.5. They want to compete. They've signed him because they need him to help them compete because they just don't have enough in the system if all these guys get injured. 20 starts, 25 starts, 130 innings, 140. Like, where does your mind go first in terms of mandatory amount of innings and starts for Max Scherzer to make this worth it?
Yeah, I look back to his 2023, guys. That's when he got traded from the Mets to the Rangers. Now, that year had about 150 innings, 27 starts, and a 3.77 ERA. That's pretty good.
Yep.
So maybe bump the bar from there down an inch. If you're looking at 140, 24, 25 starts, an ERA that's just squeezing under that 4 mark, that's still a good starting pitcher and a guy that's going to not get blown up in the first inning. He's going to give you consistent innings. So I think really just looking at 2023 and maybe you lower the bar an inch, but 25 starts, getting close to 150 innings. He doesn't need to be doing what he did back in 16, 17, 18. That's not going to happen. That's fine. He's 40. But 25 starts and an ERA that maybe slips under 4, I think you are real happy at that point. And by the end of the season, the Blue Jays will have more depth around if injuries prop up too. They've got Jake Bloss, Ricky Tiedemann, Alek Manoah could come back, and Yariel Rodriguez can slide right back in as well. The Jays' rotation depth just hasn't been good enough for a few years. Now it is, in case something happens. And Scherzer's still a guy who maybe for one more year can really do something out there.
Absolutely. All right, Keegan, appreciate you doing this, man, especially on short notice. Thank you for this.
You got it, fellas. Talk soon.
Keegan Matheson of MLB.com. Max Scherzer. Hey, you look at his prime, the years from 2012 through 2020, 2021.
Where was that, like Detroit into Washington?
Yeah, Detroit into Washington. He won 3 Cy Youngs in 5 years, and over the course of, I think, 7 straight years, he was top 5 for the Cy Young. And what's crazy is the year in 2018, he threw 220.2 innings. He had 300 strikeouts, and he didn't win the Cy Young that year. DeGrom won it, and that, again, may not be that surprising because DeGrom was just so insanely good. Remember how good he was?
I saw him. You talk about going to watch a pitcher live. Me and my wife went to a Mets game, and luck of the draw, that guy was on the mound.
Yep.
That was something to see.
Insane.
Insane how good that guy was. He's 6', he's massive, and he just threw absolute smoke. Mm-hmm. God, he was so good.
And the Mets weren't that good that year, but he had a 1.70 ERA. Remember, he didn't win that many games because they never scored runs. He'd lose 2-1 every night or 1-0. And DeGrom was so good that year. Scherzer had 300 strikeouts, did win the Cy Young, and nobody blinked an eye because DeGrom was so good. Anyway, yeah, Max Scherzer, a Blue Jay. More on that still to come. Dear Hazy B at 6:30. Chris Johnston coming up as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, we sent Al's brother out into the city with a pair of Leaf tickets. You have to guess where he's hiding for your chance to win them. Here is the fourth and final clue of the week.
Hey, OD fans, happy Thursday. It's time for the final clue of the week to find out where I've been hiding at this week to win yourself those Leafs and Canes tickets on February 22nd. Here is your final clue. This place, this dingy old rink, shares the same name as a former Blue Jays MVP.
Come on, man. All right. Everyone knows where it is now. You have to by now. But you got to wait for the cue to call tomorrow. The cue to call tomorrow, and the first caller through with the correct location wins a pair of tickets to see Leafs Hurricanes February 22nd. Find Al's brother is brought to you by McAlpine Ford in Aurora. Our family, the Ford family, and you. Full details at tsn1050.ca. Leafs will not have a home game until that game, February 22nd. I don't think they're home until then, man. That's almost a month. Because of the Four Nations and this road trip, and like they start on the road when they come out of Four Nations, so a lot of road games.
They desperately need this road trip, man. I think they just need to get away, and sometimes it helps, but you better be careful because they're playing some good teams.
That's right, man. Edmonton, Calgary's obviously nitty-gritty right now, and Vancouver's won 3 in a row, right? Yeah. All of a sudden, and you got Seattle in there. You got to take care of business for sure. All right, more on that into the next hour. Chris Johnston coming up. Dear Hazy B, Struddy's here. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050, soon to be up on TSN 2.